When 15 of the world's most elite engineers bowed their heads in failure before the world's most temperamental Ferrari, no one expected salvation to come in the form of a teenage girl with grease on her cheeks and fire in her eyes. She didn't walk into the spotlight. She became the spotlight. Like, subscribe, share, and comment if this story moved you. Help us tell more stories that remind the world what quiet brilliance looks like. The sun rose lazily over a small town in Alabama, casting golden fingers across dew-covered rooftops and sleepy storefronts. But peace has a way of shattering, and that morning it was shattered by the thunderous screech of tires and the guttural snarl of a wounded machine. A blood-red Ferrari LaFerrari limped into the dusty parking lot of Monroe Auto Repair like a dying beast dragging itself to the final vet. Its engine coughed, a jagged broken sound that grated against the ears of anyone with mechanical sense. Then silence. Out stepped a man sculpted by wealth and sharpened by ego, Carter Blackwell. His suit alone could have fed the entire block for a year. He removed his designer sunglasses and flung them onto the hood of the car like he was discarding a used napkin. "This dump?" he sneered, scanning the garage with disdain. "I was told there was a miracle worker here." Inside the garage, 17-year-old Riley Monroe wiped oil from her knuckles and ducked out from under the chassis of a beat-up pickup truck. Her faded navy jumpsuit hung loose from years of wear, and the patch with her name, Riley, was nearly invisible. Her boots were heavy with dust and grit, her ponytail frayed at the ends. And yet, when she stepped into the sunlight, she didn't shrink beneath the weight of Carter's contempt. This was her domain, her temple, her truth. Riley's mother, Sandra, approached the billionaire with the calm warmth of a Southern woman raised on manners and steel. She smiled. "Can I help you, sir?" Carter glanced between Sandra and Riley, then back at the Ferrari. His laugh was slow and dripping with scorn. "Your mechanic is a teenage girl?" He barked out a bitter laugh. "You must be joking." Riley stepped forward, her voice unwavering. "We don't joke about engines here." There it was, the first ripple of tension. Carter's grin widened, predator-like. He gestured to the smoking Ferrari behind him. "That car has humiliated 15 engineers, some with MIT degrees and more zeros on their paychecks than your little shop's entire history. You think a high school kid with grease under her nails can fix what they couldn't?" "I don't think," Riley said softly. "I know." A hush fell over the crowd forming at the edge of the lot. People from the hardware store next door, the cafe across the street, even the UPS driver paused to watch. Carter, now enjoying the theatrics, took a step closer. "All right, here's the deal," he said. "Fix the car, and I'll pay you whatever price you name. But if you fail, you'll admit, right here, that you were just pretending to be something you're not." Sandra grabbed Riley's arm, her voice a whisper full of warning and love. "You don't need to do this, baby." Riley gently pulled away. Her eyes locked on the Ferrari with something more than confidence. It was intimacy, curiosity, a connection. "It's not about proving anything, Mama," she said. "It's about listening to what no one else could hear." Then she walked. She didn't march with bravado, she moved with reverence. Past Carter, past the whispers, past the judgment. She placed her palm on the Ferrari's hood like she was touching the chest of a wounded animal, and then she closed her eyes. She listened, not to the surface noise, not to the ticking metal or the stench of burning oil. She listened to the rhythm, to the silent, hidden breath of the machine beneath its wounds. Her fingers splayed across the hot steel as if trying to feel its heartbeat. Carter rolled his eyes, already holding his phone up to record the inevitable failure. But Riley wasn't thinking about an audience. She was in communion. And in the rising silence, the air itself began to change. Birds stopped singing. People stopped breathing. The morning wind died. She moved suddenly, not rushed, certain. She grabbed a rusted stool, rolled it beside the Ferrari, and with a fluid flick of her wrist, popped the hood. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Inside was a maze of impossibility. The LaFerrari wasn't just a car, it was art. Engineered secrets buried in layers of electronic sophistication. A monster tamed only by the most privileged hands. And into that lair, Riley stepped. She opened a battered red toolbox that had belonged to her father. Every tool inside bore the memory of his hands. Worn edges, faded metal, neatly organized by purpose, not shine. She chose a small wrench and a screwdriver like a violinist selects a bow. She hasn't even run diagnostics, one of Carter's assistants scoffed. I did, Riley answered, not looking up. The moment it rolled into the lot. That was when Carter's smirk cracked. She leaned into the engine with practiced grace. Her hands moved like choreography, twist, loosen, adjust, realign. She wasn't guessing. She wasn't fumbling. She was translating. She replaced a faulty ignition coil buried beneath layers of heat shielding. She discovered a hairline crack beneath a sheath of worn insulation. She recalibrated a timing sensor using her father's old analog meter, something Carter's engineers would have thrown out as junk. The crowd fell into a spell. One woman whispered, "She's actually doing something." Carter narrowed his eyes. "It's a performance," he hissed to himself. "She's just putting on a show." But Riley didn't even hear him. Inside her mind, a symphony played. Each click of metal, each hiss of pressure, every note formed a language only she could read. Where others saw chaos, she saw poetry. Then, just as suddenly, she stepped back. She held the keys in her open palm and looked at Carter. "Start it." His laugh was automatic, defensive. "You think that mess you made did anything?" Riley didn't flinch. "Start it." The silence before ignition stretched like a tightrope. Carter slid into the driver's seat, rolled his eyes, and turned the key. The engine didn't cough, it didn't rumble, it roared. But it wasn't just sound, it was song. Balanced, perfect, alive. The Ferrari didn't sound fixed, it sounded reborn. Gasps erupted, phones fell from hands. Carter's eyes darted to the dashboard. Every indicator glowed perfect. Oil pressure, flawless, temp, steady, RPM, even. He stepped out slowly, his lips parted, but no words came. And then, he clapped. One stunned clap, then another, then another. Not sarcastic, not mocking, real. He looked at Riley like he was seeing her for the first time. "What's your name?" "Riley Monroe." "Where did you learn that? That wasn't guesswork, that was..." He swallowed. "That was design-level comprehension." "My father taught me," she said quietly. "He fixed machines like they were family." Carter stared at her. "He must have been a genius." "He was," Riley replied, "but people like you never gave him a chance." The words hit with precision. Sharp. True. Carter didn't argue, he didn't defend himself. He just nodded. And the crowd stood in stunned silence, not just at what had happened, but at who had done it. The Ferrari's engine purred behind them, its growl now a velvet promise of precision. For a long, suspended breath, no one moved, no one dared to. The teenage girl in the oil-stained jumpsuit had just bested technology, silenced ego, and rewritten every assumption written into that moment. And she hadn't raised her voice once. "She fixed it," a voice whispered in the crowd. "The mechanic's daughter fixed the Ferrari." Phones captured it. Live streams exploded. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Her name, Riley Monroe, shot through the digital veins of the internet like lightning through wire. In less than 5 minutes, clips of her hands moving confidently inside the hood of the LaFerrari had gone viral. Girl outsmarts billionaire engineers. Teenage mechanic restores $3 million supercar in under an hour. The next Elon is a 17-year-old girl in Alabama. But Riley wasn't thinking about any of that. She was still gazing at the car like it had just confided in her, like she had healed something sacred, like she had closed a loop in the universe that had been open for too long. She turned and walked toward the garage, the same calm in her step as before. The weight of a miracle didn't show on her shoulders. Carter Blackwell caught up to her before she disappeared back into the shadows. "Riley, wait!" She turned. Her boots thudded softly against the pavement, still stained from oil and years of memory. "I want to offer you something," Carter said, his voice softer now, more human than it had been all morning. "You shouldn't be wasting your talent here." Riley crossed her arms, quietly. "I'm not wasting it," she said. "I'm building it, one engine at a time." He took a breath. This was new territory for a man used to buying answers. "I'll fund your education, give you access to the best tools. You could design vehicles for my companies. You could lead innovation, be the face of what's next." Riley tilted her head, calm, composed. "You mocked me 10 minutes ago." I did, Carter admitted. And I was wrong. I'll say it. Publicly. She studied him for a beat, then said, then do it. Not as a demand, as a sentence of truth. But Riley didn't wait for his PR apology. She turned back to the garage, her silhouette framed by the morning light cutting through the door like a spotlight from heaven. What she didn't see, what she couldn't have known, was that someone else had been watching the entire time. Not from a screen, but from a car. A long, sleek, black limousine with windows so dark they mirrored the sky like ink. The hum of its engine had been drowned out by the roar of the Ferrari. But the moment Riley stepped inside the garage, the door clicked open. Out stepped a woman dressed in a tailored white suit that glimmered like frost. Her heels clicked with authority, each step like punctuation in a sentence only the powerful knew how to write. She was flanked by two assistants, both silent and sharp-eyed. Those who recognized her gasped. Madison Ford, CEO of Ford Automotive Innovation, one of the most powerful women in engineering history, the type of billionaire who rarely appeared in public without a purpose. She walked past Carter Blackwell without a word. He stepped aside instinctively. Madison's gaze was fixed on the garage. Inside, Riley was wiping down tools when her mother burst in, out of breath. Baby, there's someone outside. Important. Riley raised an eyebrow, but didn't stop cleaning. Not until the woman in white appeared in the doorway, and in that moment, when their eyes met, it felt like time folded in on itself. One woman polished by boardrooms and innovation summits. The other forged in grease, fire, and silence. Madison extended a hand. You must be Riley Monroe. Atterred, Riley looked down at her oil-covered hand, wiped it on her jumpsuit, and shook without hesitation. I am. I watched everything, Madison said. That wasn't just mechanical skill. That was understanding on a level I've never seen. You didn't fix the car, you healed it. Riley blinked, humbled but composed. I listened. Machines speak. Most people just don't listen hard enough. Madison smiled for the first time, then nodded to her assistant who stepped forward and handed Riley a sleek black envelope. Riley opened it slowly. Her fingers trembled. Inside was an invitation, a scholarship, but more than that, a future. Full access to the Ford Institute of Mechanical Innovation. Mentorship under Madison herself. State-of-the-art labs, resources, design teams, a seat at the table where machines were dreamed, before they were even born. Riley stared at it, the paper shaking slightly in her hands. Why me? She asked, voice quieter now. Madison stepped forward. Because talent like yours doesn't come from textbooks. It's not taught, it's found. And when it's found, it has to be protected. Across the street, Carter watched it unfold, silent now. Not bitter, just awestruck. He realized then, he hadn't discovered Riley. He had simply gotten in her way. And she had turned even that into a stepping stone. Within 24 hours, Riley's name had reached every major outlet. Her video had passed 30 million views. Offers poured in, scholarships, interviews, book deals. But Riley remained grounded. She showed up at the garage the next day, and the day after that. Not because she had to, because she wanted to. Because home was where engines whispered, and tools still smelled like her father's hands. Weeks later, she stood on the stage of the Ford Institute scholarship ceremony. Cameras flashed, people waited for a polished speech, but she didn't give one. She told a story. My father once told me, she said, that the world will either try to use your gift or bury it. But if you stay honest to the work, not the praise, you'll build something that lasts. I don't fix cars, I listen to them. And today, I listen to all of you. The room erupted in a standing ovation. Madison smiled from the front row, and somewhere in the back of her mind, Riley could almost hear her father's voice again. Back in Alabama, Monroe Auto Repair still stood, and Riley kept it open, not for money, not for fame, but for the girl who might walk in one day, looking just like her, a little frizzy, a little underestimated, but ready, because the girl once dismissed as just a mechanic's daughter was now the name etched into the future of engineering. Her lesson? The world may not see your worth at first, but your gift will speak for itself if you're brave enough to let it.